Have you ever wondered where it all began? Not just human civilization, but humanity itself? For centuries, textbooks told us civilization began in Mesopotamia, that science and progress came from Europe, that Africa was a footnote in human history. But what if that was never true? What if the real story was buried beneath centuries of colonial erasure, religious conquest, and academic bias? Today we peel back the veil. This isn't just history. This is ancestral memory. This is science, DNA, and spiritual inheritance converging to tell one undeniable truth. Black people are not just part of history, they are the beginning of it. From the earliest Homo sapiens in East Africa, to the genetic blueprint carried in every living human today, Africa, and its black sons and daughters, are the original people, the mother of all nations. The living proof that melanin is more than skin deep, it's sacred. In this documentary, we will trace the genetic origin of black people across time and space. We'll explore the hard science of DNA, the great migration out of Africa, the rise of black civilizations, and the lies used to bury the truth. So before Egypt, before Babylon, before the Bible and the Quran, there was Africa. There was us. If you want to find the beginning of the human story, you don't look in Europe or Asia. You look in Africa, because that's where life as we know it began. In 1974, in the Afar region of Ethiopia, scientists discovered a 3.2 million-year-old fossil of a hominid woman. She was named Lucy, or Dinkinish in Amharic, which means, "You are marvelous." She belonged to a species called Australopithecus afarensis. She walked upright. She lived in family groups. She represents the moment where ape became ancestor. But Lucy was just the beginning. In Homo Kaibish, also in Ethiopia, archaeologists uncovered the oldest known Homo sapiens fossils, estimated to be over 233,000 years old. These weren't primitive cave dwellers. They looked like us. They were us. According to genetic and fossil evidence, modern humans first evolved in East Africa, near modern-day Ethiopia, Sudan, and Kenya. This region, the Great Rift Valley, is often called the cradle of humankind. And it's not poetic exaggeration. It's scientific fact. From here, black humans would develop languages, fire, tools, and social structure, long before other humans ever set foot in Europe or Asia. And here's what's even more profound. Every single person on Earth, regardless of race, nationality, or language, carries DNA that traces back to a black African woman who lived roughly 150,000 to 200,000 years ago. She's known as mitochondrial Eve. She's not a myth. She's not a theory. She's in you. She's in all of us. But only black people carry the full genetic blueprint. Everyone else, every European, Asian, or indigenous person, carries only a fragment of that original African genome. That means the most genetically diverse, complete, and ancient lineage on Earth is the black race. Not only are black people the first humans, they are the most human. Let's leave behind bones and fossils for a moment, because now we enter the age of genetics, where truth is written in your blood. Every human carries a genetic code, a storybook of where your ancestors came from, who they mixed with, and how they survived. And when scientists decoded the human genome, they found something stunning. The greatest genetic diversity on Earth is found in sub-Saharan Africa. What does that mean? Imagine every person's DNA as a library. Some have just a few books, limited chapters from humanity's story. But African DNA? It's a full encyclopedia. Every volume. Every page. This diversity isn't a side note. It's a clue. In evolutionary biology, the longer a group has existed, the more genetic variation it develops. So while Europeans and Asians descended from small offshoot groups, black Africans stayed at the source, accumulating the richest, most complete genetic legacy of any population. This isn't just history. It's biology. Mitochondrial DNA, passed from mother to child, and Y chromosome DNA, passed from father to son, both trace back to Africa, always. And the deeper scientists dig, the more the evidence confirms. All non-Africans today descend from a small band of people who left Africa about 60,000 years ago. Geneticist Dr. Sarah Tishkoff. These migrants carried only a fraction of African genes. That's why other populations have less genetic variation. They're branches, not the root. Let's put it plainly. Black people are not one race. They are the original race. With within-group diversity so vast, two black Africans may be more genetically different from each other than a Chinese person is from a Norwegian. And yet, in modern times this truth has been buried, twisted, rewritten to favor colonial narratives and white supremacy. But science doesn't lie. DNA doesn't care about politics. And the genome remembers what the world has tried to forget. The story of humanity is a journey. A long walk that began in the heart of Africa and spread across the globe. Roughly 60,000 to 80,000 years ago, a small group of humans left Africa. Not in armies, not in waves, but in slow steps, driven by hunger, drought, curiosity, or even spiritual impulse. They followed coastlines, crossed the Sinai, wandered into the Arabian Peninsula, and slowly pushed into Europe, Asia, Oceania, and eventually the Americas. But here's the truth. Every one of those travelers looked African. They carried dark skin, broad noses, curly hair, and strong bone structure, traits shaped by millennia under the African sun. The first Asians were black. The first Europeans were black. The original Australians, the Aboriginals, black. Even the earliest humans in the Americas bear features linked to African ancestors. In fact, science confirms that European features like pale skin and blue eyes are recent mutations, many appearing as late as 6,000 to 8,000 years ago. That's thousands of years after black people had already populated the planet. Let that sink in. The world was black before it was anything else. Yet modern maps erase this. Textbooks skip it. And Hollywood rewrites it with white actors playing kings of Kush and queens of Kemet. But the earth remembers, and so do our genes. Even today, traces of African ancestry can be found in the genomes of nearly every non-African group, genetic footprints left by those original migrants. From the Andaman Islanders in the Indian Ocean, to the Melanesians of Papua New Guinea, to the ancient Gravettian culture of Europe, the mark of the African remains. Because we didn't just come from Africa, we are Africa. Scattered across the globe, wearing different faces, speaking different tongues, but rooted in the same soil. If skin color can fade, if features can adapt, then how do we prove our ancient identity? With DNA. Deep in ourselves is a record, not written in books, not told in legends, but carved into the genetic code passed down through countless generations. And here's the staggering truth. No matter where you go, from the ice fields of Siberia to the rainforests of Brazil, you'll find the genetic signature of Africa. Let's break it down. There's a specific type of DNA called mitochondrial DNA, passed only by mothers. And within it is a root lineage called L0, L1, L2, and L3. All of them are African in origin. Now here's the kicker. All non-African people today carry L3-derived haplogroups, which means every non-African person alive today descends from a black African woman who lived over 60,000 years ago. She is the mother of humanity's global family. They call her mitochondrial Eve. And there's more. Why DNA passed down from fathers tells a similar story. The E1B1A haplogroup, common in West and Central Africans, is also found in African Americans and Afro-Caribbeans. Even among Jewish populations like the Lemba of Zimbabwe, there's a connection. They carry Cohen modal haplotypes, linking them to ancient Israelite priests. Coincidence? Not quite. This isn't just about black genes. It's about black presence, black origin, black continuity. Some tribes in southern India, like the Toda and Irula, still retain African-like traits and oral traditions of a darker past. The Negritos of Southeast Asia, in the Philippines, Malaysia, and Thailand, have lived in isolation for thousands of years, untouched by waves of lighter-skinned settlers. They never left Asia. But their genes tell us where they came from. Africa. We see this same pattern in ancient Chinese texts, in Olmec sculptures of the Americas, and in the bloodlines of Pacific Islanders. Wherever you go, the echo is there. Africa is not just a continent. It's a womb, a blueprint, a genetic cornerstone. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, skin color. It's one of the first things people notice. It's been used to divide, stereotype, and judge. But what if skin color isn't about race, but about survival? At the heart of this story is a remarkable molecule, melanin, a pigment, a protector, a biological masterpiece. Melanin determines whether your skin is deep ebony, bronze, or pale pink. But it's more than just color. It's protection. Long ago, when humanity thrived in the intense UV radiation of Africa, those who had more melanin had a clear advantage. Melanin shields the skin from the sun's ultraviolet rays. It prevents DNA damage, skin cancer, and even protects the folate levels crucial for reproduction. That's why early humans, evolving under Africa's relentless sun, developed richly pigmented skin, dark, beautiful, powerful. But as some humans began migrating northward, into cooler, cloudier climates with less sunlight, the rules changed. In these regions, people needed more vitamin D, which the body synthesizes from sunlight. Too much melanin blocked this process. So over thousands of years, natural selection lightened the skin to absorb more UV rays. This isn't about superiority or inferiority. It's about adaptation. It's about climate, not character. Even hair texture changed. Tightly coiled hair protects the scalp from heat. In colder climates, straighter hair retains warmth more effectively. Eye color shifted. Nose shapes evolved. But the essence, the core of humanity, remained the same. We didn't become different species. We remained one. Homo sapiens. One family. One origin. Rooted in blackness. So the next time someone says, "Why are there so many skin tones if we all came from Africa?" Tell them this. Because skin evolved like clothing. Adapted to the environment. But always made from the same human fabric. Race. It's a word with centuries of weight. But does it have any scientific meaning? Let's be clear. Biologically, race is a myth. Not an opinion. A fact confirmed by modern genetics. In the 19th century, scientists and colonial powers sought to classify humans into rigid racial categories. White, black, Asian, other. These labels became tools for power, oppression, and empire. But when geneticists began mapping the human genome in the 20th and 21st centuries, everything changed. Turns out, all humans are 99.9% genetically identical. Yes. The differences between a Maasai warrior and a Swedish farmer are less than 0.1%. What's more shocking? There's more genetic variation within a so-called racial group than between groups. That means a Yoruba man in Nigeria may be more genetically similar to a Korean woman than to his neighbor down the road. Race is not in our DNA. It's in our minds, a social illusion. Yet this illusion has caused real harm. Colonialism. Slavery, segregation, mass incarceration, medical bias. Pseudoscientific racism told the world that people with dark skin were less intelligent, less evolved, less human. But modern science tells a different story. All humans descend from black ancestors. From the very people once dismissed as primitive. So why does the myth persist? Because it benefits power. Because the truth, that black people are the original humans, not a side branch, threatens centuries of false history. We must unlearn what was taught to divide us. Because at the cellular level, we are one family, not separate races, just different shades of the same light. For centuries, millions of Africans were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands. Sold, shipped, scattered. A human tragedy written in the ledgers of the transatlantic slave trade. From the sugar plantations of the Caribbean, to the cotton fields of the American South, to the coffee farms of Brazil. African blood was spilled, buried, and erased, or so they thought. But Africa cannot be erased. Even in chains, our ancestors carried more than just trauma. They carried memory. They carried rhythm, language, gods, and resilience. The African diaspora, from Harlem to Havana, Bahia to Brixton, became a seedbed of survival. Today, DNA technology is helping the descendants of the diaspora rediscover their roots. People are reconnecting with Yoruba, Igbo, Mende, Akan, Bantu, and Wolof identities they never knew they had. This is more than science. It's healing. It's restoration. Through art, spirituality, and scholarship, Black people across the globe are reclaiming what was stolen. In the Caribbean, they remember the Orishas. In Brazil, candomblé and capoeira keep the flame alive. In America, African drums echo in gospel, blues, and hip-hop. In the UK and Europe, new generations are rising up, not to assimilate but to honor. This is not nostalgia. This is revolution. To know where you're going, you must first know who you are. And to know who you are, you must know where you come from. Africa is not behind you. It is within you. Your skin, your strength, your soul. All of it whispers the story of kings and queens, of warriors and healers, of creators and survivors. You are the echo of a continent that refused to die. Long before the rise of Christianity, before Islam swept across the Sahara, Africa spoke to the divine in her own voice. She listened to the winds through the baobab trees. Read the messages of the ancestors in bones and dreams. She knew that the earth, the sky, the river, they were alive. The African spiritual legacy is one of the oldest on earth, and one of the most misunderstood. From the Orishas of Yoruba, to the Loa of Vodou, from the Dagra of Burkina Faso to the Kemetic wisdom of the Nile Valley, Africans developed systems of cosmic order, healing, justice, and transformation. But during colonization, these belief systems were labeled savage, pagan, and demonic. Why? Because colonizers knew something dangerous. If a people remember their gods, they might also remember their power. So they burned the shrines, silenced the drums, and forced foreign creeds upon our people. But they failed. Because African spirituality does not die, it morphs. It became candomblé in Brazil. It became Santeria in Cuba. It became Vodou in Haiti. It became Black Christianity, a rhythm-infused praise that channels ancestral memory. Even today, whether in a church in Mississippi or a shrine in Lagos, you can feel it. That deep spiritual vibration that says, you are connected. You are eternal. You are never alone. This is not superstition. This is science, philosophy, metaphysics, psychology, wrapped in ritual and rhythm. It's how African people survived the impossible. Their spirituality wasn't just about the next world. It was a way to stay whole in this one. It reminded them that they came from something sacred, and that no slave ship, no whip, no empire could take that away. Africa's soul still speaks. Not only in shrines or scriptures, but in our music, our movements, our memory, and our rebirth. From the muddy banks of the Nile, to the sacred forests of Nigeria, from the sun-scorched lands of Nubia, to the global rhythm of the African drum. Black is not just a color. It is the original code, the primal pattern, the blueprint of civilization itself. The first language? Spoken in African tongues. The first humans? Black. The first art? Etched into African caves. The first math? Carved into African bones. The first God? Conceived by African minds. The world didn't start with Africa. The world is Africa. So when they try to erase us, they are trying to erase themselves. You see, you are not a descendant of slaves. You are a descendant of survivors, builders, dreamers, kings, queens, prophets, priests, warriors, scientists, poets, and gods. They called us primitive, but we birthed empires. They called us heathen, but we touched the divine before their holy books were written. They called us backward, But we walked in harmony with the cosmos while they still feared the stars. And now we rise. We are remembering, reclaiming, rebuilding. Because Africa is not in the past. Africa is the future. And the origin of all futures. Let them teach their version. Let them rewrite and remix. But truth doesn't die, it sleeps. And now it has awakened. You are the blueprint. You are the source. You are black. And black is divine.